A little screenshot. Let's see who's coming on. This is a recent. Hey, what's up, Mark? This is the video I have from our aerobatic flight. Not sure what to do with it yet. We'll figure that one out. But maybe I'll switch screens when you're talking or when I'm talking, and we'll talk a little bit about my crazy flight I did. This is crazy. Don't mind that. Alright, let's see if some other people join in. Just messing around with the GoPro. I had control here, but still trying to put the GoPro back together. Thomas, welcome. Getting ready for my first roll here. Wild. What a wild experience. So awesome. Man, it was so cool, JC. I did 2 to 3 rolls and...
Hey.
Hey.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you well.
Okay, perfect.
Let me turn off this thing. I got that video, man. I'm still trying to figure out what to do with it,
Should post it on YouTube, I think.
Yeah?
It's a pretty cool video, yeah.
I know. You have to, be posting constantly on YouTube to get that views up. But, yeah, it's so crisp. I had the camera literally, right... I had tried to put it on a canopy, but it was so curved that
it's hard.
Old suction mount was, flat. So we had this, tiny little, a dome canopy. It's not a canopy, but a windscreen. So I stuck on that, but it still felt like it was right in front of me. Man, it's really cool, really great experience. But I think I would have enjoyed your experience, a lot. You were in the back. So anyway, welcome everyone. This is an episode of Spotters Podcast. We're joined today by Thomas Betting. He's, a great photographer. He works with his father with Flap International, and they do a lot of media coverage of aircraft, aviation. I mean, anything aviation-wise, you're covering it.
Yeah, for sure.
And then stick around mid-show, 7:30-ish. We're going to have Mark on. We're going to talk aerobatics. Recovery after flight. It's just, it really drains you like pulling G's. I would have never thought of it, but yeah, we'll talk about that a little bit more. So welcome, Thomas.
Thank you.
How was, we were talking a little bit before we got on, and how was this Cruisex compared to your first or second air-to-air shoe?
So my first air-to-air shoe was back in 2011. I was inside an Embraer 190 of Azul Airlines, and we were on the way to Santa Cruz Air Force Base, which is in the state of Rio de Janeiro, and we got flanked by 2 F-5s on the way in, which was fantastic. As a kid that watched Top Gun, I looked at my dad and probably said, "Hey, are those MiG-28s?" But yeah, it was around sunrise, so got some good shots. That was my first experience, but it was very different in a way. First, because, I was young. I don't remember as much as I do the most recent one. And also shooting through glass, pretty different compared to a cargo door on a casa opening. You just feel the environment, the wind. I never thought how loud it was going to be when they pop open that door, and it's just deafening, even with the earplugs in it. That was just a shock, how cold it is. Felt a little bit harder to breathe, even though we were below 10,000, but felt different. But one thing that was common between both is we had F5s flying on both, which was just fantastic. For my first experience, I kind of hoped that I got some better shots, and I kind of feel like I was able to redeem myself back in the Cruisex, which was held in November of last year. So that was pretty.
You were telling me you were flying for about 2 hours in that Casa 105. Besides the cold, it would be a little, I'm not sure about you, but I'm a flat lander. What I mean? If I go up in a aircraft with no doors on it, I'm feeling the pressure. Yeah. What other challenges did you have, on the back of that, on that ramp?
So I felt that fear of popping your head out of an airplane for about a second. But then I saw the subjects that we were shooting, which were the Tucanos, the Pampa, which is a light trainer, and the TAC jet for the Argentinian Air Force. It was just, I couldn't believe my eyes. I couldn't believe how lucky I was to be there. And because, there were over 300 people that applied to the media flight, and they can't get an A380 to do a media flight. So only a handful were selected. And It was pretty good. We had heard before the flight that we were only going to shoot the attack aircraft, like not the attack aircraft, trainer aircraft, like the Embraer in them.
Yeah.
And then while the KC-390 was going to do the photo shoot with the jets. So in a way, I was a little bummed out because I wanted to catch an F-15 and F-16 and a Gripen, but it was still fantastic. And then out of nowhere, we just see the KC-390 join behind the light aircraft, dragging the entire formation along. And then for the first hour, it was the trainers, and then the second hour, it was the trainers and the fighter jets and the KC-390, which was it was incredible. We were rotating a lot in there. So we would get like tapped on our shoulder, like, hey, turn around, someone's turn. And everyone obeyed it. Like, no one's like, oh, I need this shot. Like, it's everyone deserves their chance. Everyone deserves their turn. And that was pretty smooth, actually. It's a little scary once they unclip you and you're just standing by the ramp because, but it was just, some days it just hits me. I can't believe that I got to do that. It was just fantastic.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So everyone is standing at the back there.
So we had two lines, like a line of 4 standing and a line of 3 in front of them on their knees, and then 2 like load masters on the edge of the ramp, just making sure everyone's fine. They don't go past a certain point, making sure everyone's clipped in and everything. And then behind that, people are either sitting or making a line just to keep switching people.
Yeah, that's awesome. So people sitting down are also swapping out.
Yeah, everyone's swapping out. Awesome. You get like 5 minutes, I'd say, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it's 5 minutes of actual like holding down the trigger on the camera because there's just so much to shoot. At some point, it did feel a little overwhelming. I didn't know what to shoot, what looked better, what I needed more pictures of, lowering the shutter speed for the props. Should I raise it for the jets? It was just a little bit chaotic, but that just comes from, I think, lack of experience in my case. My first time like doing it in that scenario, but it was a quick learning experience. It was fun.
Now, did you shoot a wide angle lens on that shoot, or did you do like a pretty narrow? I mean, you have some wide angle photos.
Mm-hmm. So the widest lens I brought was a 28 to 300, I believe. For the I was shooting with a Nikon D800 and D700. So I put the smaller lens on the D800, and then I took a 80 to 400, just that extra 100 millimeters, could make a difference. Yeah. And put that on the D700, which I think I ended up using a lot less than the 300 because the props, I feel like I could touch them. They were just honest. And then the jets, when they would sneak up, I would just switch camera quickly, shoot them coming in. It was really cool.
Yeah. That sounds so amazing. The only time I've had like a close air-to-air that way, in 2006, I did a FAM flight with the Air Refueling Squadron out of MacDill.
Oh, wow.
And we did air refueling over the Atlantic with F-18s out of South Carolina.
That's incredible.
That was really, really awesome just to kind of like lay down in the KC-135 and the shots of these aircraft just, dude, they're like 15 feet away, You
see the videos online, but then when you see it with your own eyes, you're like, wow, that's close.
Yeah, it's quite an experience. I mean, was your dad on the flight with you?
No, he was supposed to come on the trip with me. I met him in São Paulo, and he had an eye problem that day. Like his retina, I don't know the term, but he had a problem, and the doctor said you can't travel, so he wasn't able to come with, which sucked, to say the least.
Yeah.
But, I made the most out of the situation. I still had a job to do, I obviously wanted to do it with him, but at the end of the day, we needed the report for the magazines.
Yeah. Well, yeah, quite an experience still. I mean, at least you were still in country with your dad, so you could go and hang out with him, get some. I did see you guys also did some airfield photos.
So the first day was a media day. The entire morning was kind of briefings about the exercise, press conference, and then in the afternoon we had the media flight. Second and third day, we were getting bussed out to a spot on the runway, shooting either departure, landing. When the light switched to the other side of the runway, and just did that for the entire day. It was pretty fantastic. The light was great. Everyone was super nice. No one was overstepping anyone. Mm-hmm. People with ladders hung out further back. It worked out, fantastic. The Brazilian Air Force really, really did an amazing job.
Wow. I mean, it sounds like a big production, especially when you got people with ladders on the airfield setting up. I have a list here of all the aircraft that were participating in CruiseX, and we kind of went over it a little bit. You caught the Brazilian Gripen, the JS 39 Gripen, the F5 Tiger, which it seems interesting to have it with the air refueling probe sticking out.
Yeah.
I don't see that ever. Did you get a A4 Skyhawk?
Yeah, we got one. Well, two actually, and I believe they only have three flying.
Wow.
So pretty lucky. Yeah, they should be
Yeah, that's
gone
awesome.
by the end of this year. Hope not, but
You got the Embraer 314 Super Tucanos and the 312 regular Tucanos. 312 were flying with who is this? I'm bad at flags, but
I'm trying to remember. I'm blanking. I know.
I'm blanking out.
I know the KT-1 flew for the Peruvians.
Yeah.
Oh, Paraguay. It was Paraguay.
Oh, okay, that's right. It
Yeah.
looks okay. I won't say what it looks like because I don't want to make a fool out of myself. But yes, Paraguay. I see that Argentina had a Pampa and a C-130. Did any of those?
Yeah, no, the C-130 did not participate in the media flight. I think that would have been fantastic, but it would have just been too many planes in there at the same time. You know, the formation at some point was 10 jets. Well, 11, including the one I was on.
Yeah.
So, you know, it gets pretty busy up there.
Well,
And
I saw. Sorry to interrupt. I saw that C-90 or C-390 was like show and center, and then it had Turcanos on the bottom, and like trailing with an F-15 or an F-16 behind that. I'm sure there's some challenges in that also. I mean, for the pilots having to be different type aircrafts. There's some in your photo, just different speeds. You have some aircraft with air brakes on in flight. You know, it's just, man, it's incredible.
Yeah,
those photos are incredible.
Thank you. Yeah, I was surprised how well it worked. Not that I doubt any of the air forces that participated. You know, Brazil speaks Portuguese. 80% of the other countries Spanish. The U.S. English. So I feel like and there was no practice for it. You know, just went up and did it. So really outstanding flying by all the pilots involved.
Yeah,
fantastic.
Did you overhear any like air traffic or any coordination? Was it in Spanish, English, or Portuguese?
I did not overhear, but I'm 99% sure it was done in English.
Yeah.
You know, just it's the university.
Aviation.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Awesome. Was there anything else in country that you were reporting on for FLAP?
No, that was just for CruiseX. I went there, was only there for a week. But it was, you know, one thing that my hobby is photography, right? I do this not just for work, but as a hobby. You know, when there's drill weekend over at Homestead, I'm out there shooting the Makos, or when the Arizona guys were here a week ago, I was out there shooting them. So getting to do this stuff for like a bigger purpose other than just myself is so fulfilling. You know, and you know, just seeing my pictures on a magazine, I just can't believe it. Especially when the whole flight was surreal, and then the report comes out great, and everything just worked out. That's the way I feel about that exercise. Everything just went perfect.
Yeah, it's incredible when everything lines up perfectly and you get the shots. They're you know, crisp. You get it put in a magazine. It's like a cherry on top to see your photos published.
Yeah, exactly. But overall, the exercise it had other really cool components, you know, because I got to take pictures of the guys flying, and then not even an hour later, I'm talking to the guys that were just flying the jets, you know, just asking them stuff. I got to interview Hansel, the F-15 pilot from the Louisiana Air National Guard. He was the one doing the media flight. He gave us a hell of a flying. He gave us an interview. He let me up close to see the Eagles during sunset, which was, you know, I'm never going to forget that. And I was working. I was, you know, unbelievable.
Yeah. Yeah, it's, you know, I was also in this most recent Fort Lauderdale Executive Air Show. I work at Miami Executive Tower. I do like analytical reports for the most part of air traffic, you know, and my boss is like, hey, the air show is coming in. The Blue Angels are going to Fort Lauderdale Executive. I'll call ahead. I'll get you in the tower. And I'm like, okay, so I'll just take leave and I'll go like take an hour a day off. And he's like, no, you're working. You're just going to get photos. I'm like, okay, that works out for me. The cherry on top for that was that I also got media access. So I was able to get an interview with the number 2 pilot.
That's all.
and which that footage is on my computer. I'm just trying to figure out, maybe that's something I'll have to add on YouTube, like you said. Just
Yeah,
start putting interviews up down on there and some different video. It's really great when you're having to work and all of a sudden now you get to do your love, your photography on the side.
exactly.
Like you could incorporate that into your job in a way. What experiences, well, in these three experiences that you've had, you had the first one 2011, second one 2013, and now the one in 2024. Is there one challenge that you learned, or like maybe a failure, and now it became a challenge and you were able to overcome it?
I would say just situational awareness, especially when there's more than one subject. You always got to keep an eye out because sometimes the guy on the right is popping flares and the guy on the left is just flying straight. So if you're not looking at every single direction kind of at once, you shoot, take the camera out of your eye, just look at it, come back, just think ahead in a way, and just have a overall perspective on it all. That really helps. I was just at some point shooting the jets super like full frame, and I was like, wait, the coolest thing about this is like the perspective, that you're above the jets, that you're close to them. So then I just started popping shots with the widest lens I had, which are some really cool shots of the KC-390 with the attack with the training aircraft under it, with the coast right under it. So it looks, that's better to me than a full frame shot of that
Yeah,
moment. Another thing is the lighting. You just need to kind of get creative because you can't control it. You're not the one flying the plane. They need to do loops. There's a certain area that they could fly in. So just keep an eye out
yeah.
and take chances with the shots. At some point I lowered the speed in one of my cameras to I think 40.
Wow.
So it's pretty risky, but the shot is good, then it's worth
Oh
it,
yeah.
right?
If you get a full disc on that Torcano, that Super Torcano,
Exactly. That
it
was the
makes
shot.
it so much better. Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, that's
Yeah.
awesome, man. I'm glad you had that experience. Are you gonna do it? Are you gonna do some more air to air shoots?
I hope so. If anyone listening, you know, I'm here. I'm available for it. But I don't have anything planned for right now. But I'm always on the lookout for things like that. My dad really helps me out with all of that. He sets it all up. I just show up and
Do your
do
job.
what I know. Yeah, exactly. All of this, props to him by far.
Awesome. Awesome. Great job there, Panda. You have anything else to add? What's your favorite, photo over the three events that you've done?
I think that's a really hard question. I think it's got to be the one with the KC-390 and the beach under it. But there's just so many like unique shots. When are you going to see an F-15 with a Chilean F-16 in the same picture with the
Yeah.
blue ocean right behind it? It's hard to pick. And also when I was a kid with the two F-5s around sunrise, it's just completely, I can't recreate that if I tried that 100 times. I got to go with the KC-390. That was like the first really wide open shot that I did, and I was like, I think that was the shot.
Yeah. For Sun Fun, I had a Tokina 11 to 20 millimeter. And it's super cool to have a super wide angle because everyone pretty much has like kit lenses, 18 to 200, 70 to 300 type of deal. And I was able to fit a lot for that night shoot.
I
Whole
can imagine.
A10 could fit in the frame. There was I still have pictures that I have to go through, but it's both the Harriers, some like T6, I believe it was, and an F-35 in a one frame with the
Wow.
KC-35 in the background. I mean, you can't. If there's nothing but fire in the background, but
Yeah,
it's super wide angle. It's awesome to
it's
have that.
cool. Yeah, I never really valued it until I used it in the photo flight, and it was just incredible.
Yeah,
It's what your eye sees, kind of in a
yeah,
way, compared to 600 millimeter. It's not what you're seeing with your eyes, right? So I can look back at that and see it through the picture and remember it through my eyes, if that makes sense.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember. Some people could say, "Oh, what was this picture taken?" Like this picture up here, it's huge. It's 4 foot long, And my wife was just looking at it. She's like, "Are you sure there's nothing in there like Sasquatch or it's this
Hmm.
picture was captured in like 2017 on a drive from Las Vegas, Nevada to Death Valley, and now there's a parking lot here. When we went out, well, when I went out to Red Flag, I think I'm not sure if you were out there, 2019 or not 2019. What was that? 2022
Yeah.
or 2023, something like that.
I
There,
went 23, but
I think, yeah, I can't. I think it was 23. On this drive out to Death Valley, there's a parking lot at the same spot. So, like, you remember that exact feel of when you captured that photo, the beauty of it. I mean, if we were able to print it out, then you really remember it forever.
yeah.
How we remember it in our eye is sometimes completely different than how we've captured it.
Hmm.
Having a good kind of like a Rolodex of lenses, really adds to the whole experience, I think.
I agree.
Yeah. Anything else you want to add on?
No, that was it. Short and sweet.
Awesome. Have you done any aerobatics?
I have not. I hope to do it in the future.
And it's so much fun. So if you want, you can stay on. If you have questions to ask Mark, I'm going to invite him on here now. He has a Cessna 150 that he does aerobatics in, the two-seat. It's super, super cool videos that he has on his page. And we're going to talk a little bit about that and recovery after doing aerobatics. So if you want, you can stay on. If you need to get off, I understand.
Yeah,
All good.
unfortunately, I need to go, but I thank you so much for having me here.
Thank you so much for coming on. Congratulations again on a great air-to-air shoot. Enjoy the rest of your evening. We'll catch you on the next episode.
Yes, sir. Have a good one.
All right, you too.
Thank you.
How you doing?
Hey, how are you?
Doing good.
No, just want to say thank you for letting Tom be part of your video cast. It's just amazing. It's a great boost of confidence. Well, I'm the proud father.
Oh my God, my dog.
The dog also joined the show right now. No, thanks. Thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah, you're
Really
welcome. I
appreciate
mean, it's we got to get you on. We got to talk to you more about all your experience. I see your photos. It's you've taught Thomas well.
Now, I mean, I take pictures. He's a photographer. That's how I put it. No, I mean it. I mean
Yeah.
it. This guy is a natural. I still, after 40 years, I still consider myself a guy that takes pictures, and Tom is a photographer. When we go to the same air show, it's incredible. I mean, we use pretty much the same equipment, and the results that he reaches are way better than what I achieve. So that's why it's not a proud father talking. It's just the facts. He's
Awesome.
more accomplished. He has a better eye than I do. I work hard, and it comes more naturally to him.
Yeah, I could tell. I could definitely see that with his images. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
But then again,
Thank you again
Hey,
for joining. Have a good night.
bye. You too. Bye.
All right. Let's get Mark on here. Well, you saw my shirt. I guess you had to put yours in honor of Rob Holland there.
Yeah, for better or worse, have to honor the goat, and unfortunately, he's no longer with us. But he did a good job inspiring a lot of people while he was here, and I guess everyone's going to do their best to carry on his legacy and see what we can do. Chase what he was doing, see if somebody can eventually push it up a notch. That's a really high bar to clear.
Yeah. My flight was 2 days after I heard the news, and it was a flight that, it was planned to be done weeks before, and the weather didn't work out, and it just seemed natural to have it that day, And in that video that I was playing in the beginning of this live, the wingman, I guess, or wingwoman, is Dagmar Kress. She's also an aerobatic champion. Is out of college in Colorado, but she had a student on board. She's learning. Her student, I believe her name was Helena, is learning to be a flight surgeon. So she wants to fly in helicopters as the flight doctor or something, So it was really incredible that we could both be in the air at the same time. Dagmar had looked at my shirt and she's like, "You know what that is, right?" I said, "Yeah, I know what that is." This experience is basically to be, to honor to honor Rob,
Yeah.
So it was quite an experience. I was flying in a GB1 Gamebird, a little more on the aerobatic side than a Cessna 150, but
Yeah, you could say that again.
but anyway, it was super cool. If everyone doesn't know Mark below, photo 16
A16 photo.
MK16 photo. I got a problem with numbers, I guess.
No worries.
Mark Kolanowski, you fly in a Cessna 150. Is there anything special that you've done to this aircraft so you can pull these rolls and spins on it? Or not spins,
Yeah,
but...
so nothing I've done to it, but I think it's about 12,000 150s that were built. There's a handful, and I do mean a handful, probably about 300-400, if I understand correctly, that came off the line as the Cessna 150 Aerobat. And part of what that is, they put the struts from a 182 on it. The skins are thicker. My understanding is there's some extra ribs in there. But other than that, it's more or less a stock 150. There's no major changes to the airfoil or anything like that. So it is very much a Cessna. It just happens to be a little bit stronger and capable of taking some of the loads of that kind of flying. So I haven't done anything to it, but Cessna certainly did at the factory to make it a little bit more capable than a stock airplane.
Yeah, that's we were talking about that at work. We have a coworker that owns a Cessna 150, and I said, "Hey, dude, so you could go aerobatic flying in this thing?" He's like, "That might be. I don't think that's a standard for my aircraft."
But I'm pretty sure the standard ones are utility category, so they're rated, I think, for plus 4.4, minus 1 point something or 2 point something. Mine's rated plus 6, minus 3. Nowhere near Gamebird levels of capability, but it's a lot more than you can legally do in anything else Cessna has built outside of a couple of military things they did back in the day.
I mean, I've seen your videos, man. You're pushing like 3 Gs on some of these maneuvers.
Yeah,
which makes
that's about what I limited. I don't like to pull more than that in that airplane. I mean, at the end of the day, it rolled off the assembly line at the end of 1969. It was if memory serves me correctly, the 71st Aerobat ever built. It's an older airplane, and I treat it as such. I do some fun things with it, but I have no interest in finding out what the strength of a spar is after it's been flown for 50-something years.
Yeah, for sure.
No need to push it that hard.
Well, I'm sure if you're doing when you're doing your annual or your 100-hour or 500-hour inspections, that they're checking your spars, they're checking for cracks and all that stuff.
Yeah, we just finished the annual up on it. Was it last Saturday? I think I flew it home. So had it out there for about 2 weeks, took the whole thing apart, checked on everything. This year, among other things, we did new engine mounts. Apparently, pulling 3 Gs repeatedly, what's it going to do to the engine mounts? They compress a little bit, and the prop spinner was getting a little bit close to the bottom half of the cowling there up in the nose. So we, swapped those out, and go figure, that engine's sitting probably an inch or so higher than it was when I dropped the airplane off. But that's all, all part of the game, I guess. You can fly a lot calmer than I do, but it's not nearly as fun.
Yeah. How many hours you got in that airframe?
Geez, that one at this point, I've got to be pushing 350, probably 400 hours, if that. I think my total time right now is closing in on 500. Vast majority of that's been in the 150. Pretty close to pretty close to 400 total time in that airplane. And then of that, I think 75 hours or so has been formation, and a decent portion of the rest has been aerobatics and or traveling to air shows.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Just to get in your plane and just go wherever you want.
Yeah, that's the plan for Saturday.
Yeah.
So got a couple of friends who want to go down to the air show in Toledo. So we'll load up, go down in formation, and hang out with our friends for the day, and then fly home that night. No problem.
Thomas is asking, what made you decide on the 150 for aerobatics?
Yeah, so aerobatics wasn't originally the plan. This is my first airplane, so I had been looking at a couple of higher performance models initially, not necessarily for aerobatics, but more for future proofing. Unfortunately, about the time I was looking, there just so happened to be that whole coronavirus thing going around, and the prices on everything, particularly airplanes, went up by a lot. So, I had to give up on my dreams of buying an RV-8 as my first aircraft. But what we ended up doing, I was looking at two-seat trainers, just something cost effective, finish up the license and have some fun. And first one I looked at fell through. It wasn't even a Cessna, it was a Grumman two-seater, and that fell through. But then a friend of mine found the 150 at an airport near him, and he said, it was not for sale at the time, but maybe the owner would be willing to part with it. So got in touch with the owner, ended up having a pretty good discussion. He realized he wasn't flying it as much as it deserved. I got to go down and check it out. Next thing you know, I'm wiring some money over and I own an airplane. So it's not the perfect aerobatic plane by any means, but for where I'm at, to be able to knock out all my initial training and have something that cost effective that I can also take upside down, it doesn't get much better than that.
Yeah, for sure. That's so much fun, man. I was talking a little bit about Sun and Fun, and it was my first time at Sun and Fun this year, and just seeing all these vintage airplanes and stole aircraft, the aerobatic, the light sports. I was just like, okay, I guess I didn't like it before. I've been on a bunch of like fan flights, whatever these intro flights are. You're in a Cessna 172. This is what you're gonna do. Back when I was like 20, and I was just like, oh god, why do I gotta start at a Cessna? It's too slow. Why do I gotta do steep turns? Why do I gotta do this? Why do I gotta do that? Now I'm like, I want to do it. I want to do it all.
Yeah, and I will say those fundamentals go a long way. For when it comes time to do the aerobatics and stuff. You get a little bit slow at the top of the loop, for example, and it's like, okay, the controls are kind of mushy. The stall horn starts to make just, slightest bit of noise. In my airplane, it goes off pretty early. It's probably about 8 knots above stall. But, you get a little bit slow over the top, it starts making noise. Oh, crap, it's going to stall. No, you just unload it a little bit, let the nose keep falling through. There's not much to it. It's just you do all those maneuvers in your training to get comfortable with the airplane. You understand how it handles in different flight regimes. And that translates well to whatever you're going to fly next, but it's a lot easier to learn something that's more tolerant and a lot more calm than jumping right into, say, a game bird and trying to get your private in that. It's just, I'm sure it's not impossible, but it's probably not the smartest move.
It was, it's definitely different handling the stick of this game bird. It's like super sensitive. It's you move it a little bit and we're like snapping over. So I was like, okay, kind of like pilot's holding it with one hand. I'm like holding it softly, like don't want to break this thing. I also don't want to like snap the wings over. So in this video that I was playing earlier, we're paired up. My pilot's flying when we're in formation there, and he has an extra NG that was in alongside us. And once they split, he's like, "All right, you got the plane." I'm like, "But the camera's facing the wrong way. I got to change where the camera is." Right? So I got this stick between my legs. I'm holding it level. He's like, "All right, let's climb to 3,000." I'm like, I gotta do this." So like, what's first? Do I got to do the camera? Do I got to do fly the planes? I just kind of put it back however it was. We climbed up to 3,000. He's like, "Oh, pull the stick to the left." I was like, really? You want me to just do this right here? Like, I don't know what I'm doing. And then like mid-flight, we had already done like 3 rolls, and the camera turned off like mid-flight or whatever. But when we did the first, like we dipped the nose down. And then we pulled back on the stick. When we did the first like loop, I was like, okay, this is fun. He's like, how many hours do you have? I'm like, 0. He's like, what? 0? How are you doing this so well? I'm like, well, I've done like fan flights and I've flown for like 15 minutes at a time, but never to this extent, So
you might not have a logbook, but 0 isn't really 0 in this.
Yeah, it's not 0, man. It felt supernatural to take the instruction. He's in my ear. He's like, okay, we're going to turn. Let's do a 360 here. And we're just kind of banking. And it's kind of like a steep turn. And I didn't even notice it because I don't know if it's the canopy that it's so crystal clear. It's over you. There's no, distractions. You can see the aircraft, traffic below us. we're in the in the box, the training area, southwest of our airport. Everyone's training at 1,000 feet, doing steep turns and 360 turns, very standard. And we're at like 3,000 feet doing a loop, 3 to 5,000 feet, and we're like, okay, this is great. Like, I'm upside down, but I see a plane below me, like 2,000 feet. Man, it was just incredible to be able to be in this thing for 40 minutes. I did pull 4.5 Gs, and you're telling me, oh, that's it. I'm like, yeah, that's it. Yeah, I felt like I weighed like 1,100 pounds.
The game bird is capable of a lot more. I'm sure you know that. I've personally flirted with 6 a few times, albeit not in my airplane. But yeah, I mean, the game bird that could do some damage to anybody. I mean, you pull hard on that stick, or you go full deflection for a roll, and if you're not 100% knowing what you're doing, I wouldn't say you're going to get in trouble and get hurt. The airplane's not going to get hurt, but you might be an inch shorter when you wake up the next day. So that plane's got a lot of capability for sure.
Yeah, so I took your advice from our first episode. You came in back in January, episode 14. If everyone wants to go listen to that, it's on Spotify. You told me, get hydrated early, drink water before your flight, drink water after your flight. I'm like, okay, I got my water done. I got like 2.5 bottles of water before my flight. And then we had Nick Pasquarello on episode 18. He did a flight in an F-15, which of course that's next level, right? And he's like, oh yeah, if you want to eat something, eat peanut butter because it tastes the same way coming out. And I was just thinking, I'm not going to eat anything. I'm just drinking water. That's it. I'm not going to eat. And it was fine. I didn't feel sick at all. When I landed though, I was wiped out. Probably ended up drinking like 8 bottles of water back on the ground. And I was just like, I'm hungry now. I'm going to go chow down. And when I got home, I was like, I couldn't move. I had to take a nap for like half the day. My shoulders were like, I don't know, man. I guess we don't normally feel 1,000 pounds when we're on the earth, you know what I mean? But when we're doing these maneuvers, I can understand why these guys are so skinny now doing aerobatics.
Yeah, and I mean, you kind of hit the nail on the head with the hydration. I know that's one of the big things. It's one of those cases where the best offense is a good defense, right? So being prepared, well rested, hydrated, it's going to be hard work if you're doing it right. If it's going to feel like you got out of the gym doing leg day, even after 15-minute hard flight in an airplane like a Game Bird. I mean, that's like an hour in the gym lifting.
Oh yeah.
They say don't fly on an empty stomach. I don't fly on an empty stomach. I know you did. I've heard that it's not, the best idea to fly empty. Just a light something, certainly don't do what I do and go eat a half a greasy pizza and then go. That might not be the smartest idea, but, bananas I've heard do have the same effect as peanut butter. They taste the same if you revisit your breakfast.
I didn't want to make it.
Yeah, like one of my friends, I was talking, a couple of weeks ago, and they did, a backseat ride in an RV-8, I think, with their significant other a while back. And it's like, yeah, I felt really dizzy. I didn't like it. And we were pulling, 5 Gs, whatever it was. And it's like, did they teach you how to handle that? No. What do you have to do? It's just, come on. Your pilot should be telling you, even if it's 4 or 5 Gs, for a normal person off the street, 4 to 5 Gs is a big deal. Yeah. Roller coasters, people will say, oh, the roller coaster will hit 3 Gs, 4 Gs. Yeah, for a nanosecond, right? And it gets you the feeling, but you're never going to sustain it. These airplanes can sustain it until they run out of gas.
Yeah.
Plain and simple. So knowing how to handle the Gs, especially if you're going to sustain anything, is huge. And I think a lot of pilots who take people up on these rides, or people going into it, without a background in it, who want to just take their first aerobatic lesson, if you go into it without knowing what to do, you're doing yourself a disservice. So yeah. That's a pretty big one. I know you had said, you'd mentioned things about how to deal with it in the air, right? I always, every time I have a passenger who's not aerobatically acclimated, will say, I've got 2 barf bags ready to go. A gallon Ziploc stuffed under their shoulder harness, and then one of the ones with the ring, the dentist will give you after coming out from under, under anesthesia. And I've got one of those ready to go in mine so that I can reach over if I need to, because I really feel like cleaning that out of my seats or my carpet. So, that's a big one, is be prepared in that way. As soon as you feel uncomfortable, and this is something a lot of people, I feel like they don't stress, is you tell your pilot.
Yeah.
I will literally at that point the airplane back to the airport and give someone the controls, because the distraction technique works incredibly well in most cases. Of the 2 people I've had get mildly sick doing aerobatics, one of them didn't puke until they were back on the ground. And in fairness, they were dehydrated and it was like an 85-degree day. So fortunately, the deck was stacked against them. The other one didn't end up getting sick, but they felt queasy. They let me know. We're pointed back to the airport. I let them fly it. And they, a couple minutes later, it's like, oh, I'm feeling better. We should do more. I'm like, no, because if I were to do anything else right now, you're going to lose your chunks while we're upside down. And no, not going to play that game. That's part of it too, is knowing people's limits.
Yeah, for sure. That's one thing we didn't really talk about. I mean, I know, if you're going to pull a G, you want to tighten your core, you want to push down, you want to get that blood out of your head, you know what I mean? So I know
you got to keep it in your head.
That one, huh?
You got to keep it in your head. That's why you tighten up everything at the bottom so the blood can't rush there. And that's actually one of the interesting things, is like they say, if you want to be like a G monster, hardcore aerobatic pilot, you don't do cardio. You just lift, because your muscles get more developed. You can tense them up more, and it keeps the blood up where it's supposed to be.
Oh yeah. That's true. I was upside down, so maybe I thought about the other way. But
you were doing negative G's.
I tightened it up pretty well. And in this last video of this roll, you could see like the boom. I mean, I had it tight, and I just kind of like rested my head back on the console in the back. I'm like, oh man, this is a pretty comfy spot right here. I don't want to move a little bit, but I remember the pilot telling me, like, when we were trying to climb, it was also, we had a bad crosswind. It was like 12 to 15 knots when we were going out to the practice area. So I was trying to look at the instruments. Remember, I haven't flown for probably like 15 years. So I'm like, okay, these instruments I haven't seen in a while. So I know, okay, altimeter's here, your speed's over here, your horizon. I knew that. So I'm trying to follow this GPS heading with his little line, and he's like, all right, stop looking at the instruments and look outside. I'm like, oh, I got to make sure I'm at the same that we're climbing. So he's like, you'll notice that when you put the nose at the horizon or a little bit above, you'll see it outside. He did kind of like tell me, hey, stop looking at this. Look outside. And I was like, okay, I could actually fly better this way. You know what I mean?
One of my friends, same thing. He's a local police officer, and I've had him come up with me a few times, and he's got hundreds of hours in Flight Simulator. And first thing that happens when I hand over the controls is he looks down at the panel. I said, no, eyes up, look outside. Yeah. There's a building on the horizon there, the white building. Point the nose at that and track that. I don't care what the heading is. Just point for that building. You got to occasionally look over, hey, look up, but it's part of the fun. You get people in there who haven't done it before, and they think, oh, you got to look at the instruments. And in certain flight regimes, you do, but that's not one of them. Yeah. You just glance down, figure out your altitude. You don't have to be staring at it.
Definitely. That's something, when we were coming back, he's like, all right, keep it at, 2,000 feet. And I was just like, I was trying. I was probably, dehydrated. My brain stops working a little bit when you're dehydrated. So I'm like, okay, I'm trying to keep it at 2,000 feet, but kind of lost that one. I'm at 1,800 now. He's like, all right, so let's slow descent. Let's go to 1,500. And I was like, oops, I passed 1,500. Like, I'm ready to come down. So when we got back on the ground, plus I'm 6'3", man. That game bird in the front seat is not very comfortable. So, when he got, I put this chute on before flight, put this parachute on, we sat on the front seat, or I sat on the front seat, and he's like, well, where's your feet? I'm like, they're on the pedal. They're not going to be able to come off. And he's like, well, you're going to have to take them off for takeoff and landing. Oh, and taxi. So when we're coming in for a landing, I'm like, I'm going to tuck my feet back, you know what I mean? And it's like not even tucking my feet. It's like grabbing my legs behind my knees and pulling them out, and it was uncomfortable, but you have that adrenaline going, that keeping you kind of ready to tackle the next thing, the next obstacle, what I mean? Overall, awesome experience. Would I do it again? Yes. Like tomorrow, let's go do it. I look at yours and I see 2Gs, 3Gs. I'm like, yeah, we could do that anytime you want. Yeah, super easy.
Everybody says that right up until I do that first roll, and all of a sudden their eyes get really big, and the next thing you know, it's like, I'm not feeling so good. Well, I told you, there's a reason we work up to that slowly.
It's
There's a
also
reason.
capabilities and performance.
Absolutely.
You're doing 3Gs. It looks pretty easy going, but you're in a Cessna 150. You have 100 horsepower, most likely. Performance is going to be a little slower, and you're cranking that yoke all the way to the left. Here, I'm not moving the stick any more than like 2-3 inches. You know what I mean? It probably has almost double or not triple the horsepower in the Game Bird.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, Game Bird's got at least double my horsepower, probably a little, definitely more than double my horsepower. But the big thing is the roll rate and the pitch rate and all that. That's where it really gets you.
Yeah, it's incredible. Real quick before we're done here, I see that you're doing some air-to-air shoots. Is that in your aircraft?
Yeah, so I do some air-to-air from the 150. The pilot's window just so happens to open all the way. I don't know what happened to that little pin that holds the window just a little bit open. Yeah, the window opens up all the way, so we do some air-to-air shoots out of that. At least with the airplanes that are speed compatible, which not all of my friends have, but we like doing shoots with the 150 for sure. It's fairly easy to do if I've got a competent co-pilot who can hold the airplane as I need it to, be very slow, predictable, and deliberate in formation. So we like to do that a lot. The other thing that we're working on now, there's some talk of potentially doing some air shows this summer, two-ship routine, emulating certain parts of Iron Eagle, where I'll be racing a dirt bike and we'll be doing low-level formation in the 150 and the Tomahawk. So we're, at the moment, we've been doing our first low-level trainings for that. Still have some boxes to check on the regulatory front to make that happen, but we're hoping that it can happen later this summer. Right now, it's just a matter of getting the right people in the right place at the right time to get certifications and qual signed off so that can actually happen. So no low-level aerobatics per se, but low-level formation. And, I'll say it, steep turns at 250 feet are a hell of a lot more fun, although a lot less forgiving than doing them at 3,000 feet. So it's a blast.
I plan on doing some flight training next year. I got hooked already just by looking at it and experiencing an aerobatic flight. And now I'm like, you know what? Now I think it's a good time to kickstart that certification process, do the training. I really would like to get seaplane rated. So I want to be able to maybe fly a Beaver, those things are awesome. There's a few of them that sounded fun. So
yeah, that's on my to-do list someday. And I know it goes without saying, if you have questions, comments, concerns, anything with respect to training, feel free to let me know. I'll do whatever I can to help you out.
Awesome. Appreciate that. Anything else you want to add for tonight?
I know you had said aerobatic recovery post-flight, so I'll run down the list of things that I have. You kind of covered it, but yeah, rehydrate ASAP. You'll probably be sweating like crazy. Take some time to relax and cool off. It can be a workout, even in a relatively pedestrian airplane or a gentle flight in a crazy airplane. A little bit of time to relax and cool off is very helpful. Debrief with your pilot. What went well, what didn't go well, what did you like, what didn't you like, and figure out, if you're fortunate enough to have a next time, hey, I want to try this next time we go up and do that. But yeah, just rehydrate, eat, recover as if you were just finished up with a gym session, because that's kind of what you've got going. If you're one of these crazy people who do this stuff a lot, go do it again an hour later. But that's more than a lot of people want to do. We'll put it that way. Like you said, you were done after that flight. If you were to do that, do that a couple of times a week. What would normally be a 15 to 20 minute flight can be an hour flight. It's a great, it's a load of fun.
Yeah. Thank you, Gaston. I hope your plane is ready for the next flight. I know you had to do some maintenance. Thanks for joining. We'll have to get you on. He flies, I believe it's an extra at the airport. I'm not quite sure exactly what he's flying, but he does some aerobatics also. Yeah, definitely that workout session kick my ass.
It's all part
It
of the
was-
fun. But as Rob would show in all of his videos preseason, he would start with 5 or 6 Gs and work his way up. And somebody with that level of skill, even after a couple months off, you can't go out and fly like that. So work up to it, have fun, and as he would always tell us, fly good, don't suck. So
Yeah.
keep
Fly
that
good,
up.
don't suck. Live free and fly.
That's it.
All right, Mark. Thanks for joining today. I know it was short notice. You pulled through,
No worries.
jumped on board on that one. So thanks for sharing your insights, your experiences, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Sounds good. Thanks, Oscar. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, talk to you. See ya, everyone. Thanks for joining. Have a good night.